My hand was shaking. Not a little tremble, not a vibration. My hand was shaking so hard the bag of frozen peas I was holding against my dog's ribs was making a crinkling sound like someone walking on dry autumn leaves. I looked down at Barnaby. He was 140 pounds of black Newfoundland fur, a creature designed by God to rescue drowning fishermen and cuddle children, and right now he was pressing his massive, blocky head into my thigh, letting out a low, confused whimper that felt like a dagger twisting in my gut. I looked up from the dog to the woman standing 20 feet away on her manicured lawn. "You are going to regret that," I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. It sounded hollow, scraped raw, dangerously quiet. "You have no idea how much you are going to regret that." Brenda adjusted her floral blouse, the kind that cost too much and looked like upholstery from a 1980s motel, and crossed her arms. She had the audacity to look self-righteous. She had the absolute, unmitigated gall to stand there on her pristine emerald driveway and sneer at me while my best friend was in pain. "Keep that beast on your side of the line, Jack," she shrieked, her voice cracking like a whip. I told you 1,000 times. If it threatens me, I have the right to defend myself. It's the law. It's self-defense." "He was sniffing a dandelion, Brenda," I roared, the quiet breaking, the rage spilling over the dam. "He was sniffing a flower. He wasn't even on your property. He was 3 feet inside my line. You crossed the line to kick him." "He lunged," she lied. She pointed a manicured finger at me, shaking with rage. "I saw it. He lunged at me. I feared for my life. That is a dangerous animal. And don't you think the HOA won't hear about this? I'm calling the board right now. You'll be fined into bankruptcy. I'll have that monster put down." The world went red at the edges. I didn't step toward her. I knew better. I knew that if I took one step off my porch, if I crossed that invisible barrier between my sanctuary and her realm of madness, I would end up in handcuffs. And then who would take care of Barnaby? I took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of cut grass and ozone, forcing my heart rate down from stroke to just mild cardiac event. I pulled my phone out of my pocket. I didn't dial the HOA. I didn't dial my mom. I dialed 911. "Yeah, go ahead and call your friends on the board," I said, pressing the phone to my ear, my eyes never leaving hers. "I'm calling the police. And Brenda, look up." She frowned, her eyes darting around. I pointed to the corner of my garage. 4K resolution, Brenda, night vision audio. It captures everything within a 100-foot radius, including the part where you walked 4 feet onto my lawn and steel-toed my dog in the ribs. The color drained from her face faster than water from a bathtub. For the first time in the 2 years I'd lived next to the Witch of Whispering Pines, she looked genuinely terrified. 911. "What is your emergency?" the operator asked in my ear. "I'd like to report an animal cruelty incident and a trespassing in progress," I said, my voice steady, my eyes locked on Brenda. "And I need an officer here immediately, before the perpetrator tries to flee the scene." To understand why a grown woman kicked a dog that looks like a living teddy bear, you have to understand 2 things. You have to understand Barnaby, and you have to understand Brenda. And they are, in every cosmic sense, matter and antimatter. Barnaby is a Newfoundland. If you've never met one, imagine a black bear that has been genetically modified to be addicted to belly rubs and cheese. He is huge. When he stands on his hind legs, he can put his paws on my shoulders and look me in the eye. And I'm 6'2". He drools. He sheds enough fur to knit a secondary dog every week. But he is also the softest soul on the planet. I have seen a kitten hiss at him, and Barnaby hid behind my legs. I have seen him get startled by his own fart. He is a pacifist. He is a lover, not a fighter. He is the kind of dog that, if a burglar broke in, would probably show the guy where the silverware was if it meant getting a pat on the head. Then there is Brenda. Brenda lives in the house to my right. It is a beige two-story colonial that looks like it was 3D, printed by a machine, designed to eliminate joy. Her lawn is not grass. It is a green military dictatorship. Every blade is measured. Every hedge is squared off with laser precision. There are no weeds in Brenda's yard because I'm pretty sure she screams at them until they die of shame. Brenda is the president of the Homeowners Association, but that title is too small for her ambition. She acts like the emperor of the cul-de-sac. She walks the neighborhood with a clipboard and a ruler. She measures the distance of trash cans from the curb. She checks for unauthorized shades of beige on mailboxes. She is a woman who wakes up every morning and chooses violence. And she hates Barnaby. She hates him because he is big. She hates him because he exists. She hates him because, unlike her, he is capable of experiencing unbridled joy. It started the week I moved in. I was unloading boxes, and Barnaby was sleeping in the shade of the moving truck. Brenda marched over, clipboard in hand, and didn't introduce herself. She didn't say, "Welcome to the neighborhood." She said, "There is a weight limit for pets in the CC&Rs. That is not a dog. That is livestock." I had checked the bylaws. "Actually," I had replied, smiling, back when I still had hope. "Section 4, paragraph B states no more than 3 household pets. It doesn't specify weight, just that they can't be commercial livestock. He's a pet." She had narrowed her eyes at me, eyes that looked like 2 beads of obsidian sinking into dough. "We'll see about that," she had hissed. For 2 years, it was a cold war. She measured my grass. She complained about my trash cans. She claimed Barnaby barked all night. He snores, he doesn't bark. But I was careful. I kept Barnaby on a leash or in the fenced backyard. I picked up his poop with the diligence of a crime scene investigator. I gave her nothing. Until today. It was a Tuesday. I work from home as a graphic designer, so my schedule is flexible. It was a beautiful afternoon, low humidity, the kind of day that begs you to go outside. I decided to take a break and water the front flower beds. Barnaby came with me. I don't have a fence in the front yard, HOA rules, thanks to Brenda, but Barnaby is trained. He knows the boundaries. He knows stay. He was lying in the grass, chewing on a rubber toy, watching me with those big, soulful brown eyes. I was focused on the hydrangeas. I had my back turned to the street for maybe 30 seconds. That's when I heard the car door slam. Brenda had just pulled into her driveway. She was carrying groceries. Now, usually, Barnaby ignores her. He knows she smells like bitterness and cheap hairspray. But today, a butterfly, a literal, honest-to-God monarch butterfly, fluttered past his nose. Barnaby, being a creature of wonder, stood up. He didn't bark, he didn't run. He just stood up and took 2 steps to follow the butterfly. He was still on my lawn. I know this for a fact. I have the survey stakes. I have the invisible line burned into my memory. He was 3 feet from the property line. But Brenda dropped her grocery bags. A jar of pickles shattered on the concrete. "Get back!" she screamed. I spun around, dropping the hose. "Barnaby, stay." He froze. He looked at me, tail giving a slow wag, as if to say, "Did you see the pretty bug, Dad?" He wasn't looking at Brenda. He wasn't moving toward her. He was standing still, a giant black fluff ball on his own property. But Brenda didn't see a dog. She saw an excuse. She saw a moment she had been waiting for since the day I moved in. She saw a chance to be the victim, to be the hero, to finally rid her kingdom of the beast. She didn't retreat. A normal person afraid of a dog backs away. A normal person gets in their car. Brenda charged. She ran across her driveway, her face twisted into a mask of pure, unadulterated malice. She crossed the property line. She stepped onto my grass. Barnaby didn't growl. He actually dipped his head, probably thinking she was coming to say hello. He's an idiot. A sweet, loving idiot. She drew her leg back. She was wearing those heavy, chunky orthopedic loafers with the thick soles. and she kicked him. She kicked him right in the ribs, just behind his front leg. The sound was a dull thud, like hitting a heavy punching bag. Barnaby let out a sound I will never forget. It wasn't a roar. It was a high-pitched yelp, a cry of shock and pain. He scrambled backward, his paws slipping on the grass, trying to get away from the source of the pain. He cowered. He made himself small, pressing his belly into the dirt, looking up at her with terrified confusion. "Get away! Get away, you monster!" Brenda was screaming, standing over him, raising her leg to kick him again. That was when I hit the sound barrier. I don't remember crossing the distance from the flower bed to the property line. 1 second I was holding a hose, the next I was standing between a cowering 140-pound dog and a lunatic, my chest heaving, my hands balled into fists so tight my fingernails were cutting into my palms. "Touch him again," I said, my voice shaking with the effort of not physically throwing her into the sun. "Touch him again, Brenda, and God help me." She stumbled back, startled by my sudden proximity. That's when the acting started. That's when she grabbed her shin, wincing in fake pain. "It bit me! It attacked me!" And that brings us back to the frozen peas. The police cruiser pulled up exactly 7 minutes after I made the call. I checked my watch. 7 minutes. Good response time. I was still sitting on the porch step, the bag of peas pressed against Barnaby's side. He had stopped whimpering, but he wouldn't leave my side. He was leaning his entire weight against me, seeking comfort. Brenda was waiting at the curb, arms crossed, tapping her foot. She had touched up her lipstick. She looked ready for her close-up. Officer Miller stepped out of the car. I knew Miller, not personally, but he patrolled our neighborhood often. He was a big guy, tired eyes, seen it all. He looked from Brenda to me, and then down at Barnaby. "All right," Miller sighed, adjusting his belt. "Dispatch said there was an assault? Who's hurt?" "I am!" Brenda shouted, raising her hand like a student who knows the answer. "I was attacked! That animal went crazy! I have a bruise on my shin!" "She kicked my dog," I said from the porch, not standing up yet. I wanted the visual to sink in. Me comforting the victim. Brenda screeching in the street. She trespassed on my property and kicked my dog in the ribs. Miller walked up the driveway. He looked at Barnaby. Barnaby, seeing a new human, gave a tentative thump of his tail against the porch decking. "This the dog?" Miller asked. "That's the killer," I said dryly. "Watch out, he might lick you to death." "He's vicious!" Brenda cried, walking up behind the officer but staying on the driveway. "He lunged at me. I had to defend myself. I want to press charges. I want that dog taken by animal control immediately." Miller looked at Brenda. "Ma'am, step back for a moment. Let me talk to the gentleman." He turned to me. "Did the dog bite her?" "No." "Did he leave the property?" "No." "No." "Can you prove that?" Miller asked, his voice low. "Because it's he said, she said right now, and she's got a scrape on her leg." I smiled. It was a cold smile. "Officer, would you like to see the video?" Miller's eyebrows went up. "You have video?" "I have a 4K security camera mounted on the garage. It covers the entire front yard and half of hers. I have the app open on my phone right now." I stood up, giving Barnaby a reassuring pat, and walked over to the officer. Brenda went silent. She hovered, trying to see the screen. I pressed play. On the small screen, the scene played out with crystal clarity. The quiet afternoon, the butterfly, Barnaby standing up, the shattered pickle jar, and then the charge. Miller watched in silence. He watched Brenda run across the grass. He watched Barnaby stand there, tail wagging. He watched Brenda draw back her leg and deliver a full-force kick to the ribs of a stationary animal. He watched Barnaby cower. Miller watched it twice. Then he paused the video on the frame where Brenda's foot was connected with Barnaby's side. He looked up at Brenda. His expression had changed. The tired cop look was gone, replaced by something much sterner. "Ma'am," Miller said, his voice flat, "this video shows you entering this man's property." I thought he was going to," Brenda stammered, her face flushing a deep, blotchy red. "The dog was standing still," Miller continued. "He wasn't growling, he wasn't barking. He was on his own lawn. You ran 20 feet to engage him." "It's a proactive defense," she tried, grasping at straws. "As HOA president, I have a duty to remove threats." "You kicked a dog," Miller said. "That's animal cruelty. And since you did it on his land, it's trespassing." "I want her charged," I said, stepping in. "I want to press full charges: animal cruelty, trespassing, and destruction of property. I'm taking him to the vet right now for x-rays. If there's a broken rib, I'm adding damages to the lawsuit." Brenda scoffed. "Lawsuit? Please, it's a dog. You can't sue me for kicking a dog." Miller turned to her fully now. "Actually, ma'am, in this state, he certainly can. And criminally? You're looking at a misdemeanor, possibly a felony depending on the vet report." "Am I under arrest?" Brenda screeched, clutching her pearls. She was literally wearing pearls. "I'm issuing you a citation right now," Miller said, pulling out his ticket book. "You have a court date, and I am strongly advising you to stay off this man's property. If I have to come back here tonight, you're going for a ride." Brenda stood there, mouth open, looking like a fish that had been slapped with a wet towel. She glared at me with pure venom. "This isn't over, Jack," she hissed. "You think you can humiliate me? I run this neighborhood." "Not anymore," I said. "Miller, can I go? I need to get him to the vet." "Go," Miller said. "I'll handle her." I loaded Barnaby into the back of my SUV. He moved stiffly, favoring his left side. Every time he winced, my resolve hardened like concrete setting in the sun. I drove to the emergency vet clinic with one hand on the wheel and the other reaching back to stroke Barnaby's head. "It's okay, buddy," I whispered. "We're going to fix this. We're going to fix everything." The vet was a kind woman named Dr. Evans. She shaved a patch of Barnaby's fur on his side. The skin underneath was already turning a dark, angry purple. "He's lucky," Dr. Evans said, looking at the x-rays. "No fractures, just severe deep tissue bruising. He's going to be sore for a few weeks. I'm going to give him some pain meds and anti-inflammatories." "Can you write that up?" I asked. "I need a formal report. Caused by blunt force trauma." "Everything." "I will," she said, petting Barnaby. "Who did this?" "A neighbor," I said. "A neighbor who just made the biggest mistake of her life." I left the vet 2 hours later with a groggy dog and a bill for $400. I didn't care about the money. I cared about the principle. I cared about the fact that my home, my sanctuary, had been violated. When I got home, Brenda's house was dark, but I knew she was in there, watching, plotting. She thought this was a skirmish. She thought she would pay a fine, maybe write an apology letter, and go back to measuring grass. She didn't know who she was dealing with. I sat at my kitchen table, the vet bill on one side, the citation copy Miller had given me on the other. I pulled out my laptop. I didn't search for how to sue a neighbor. I searched for civil harassment restraining order. I read the statutes. I read the definitions of harassment: unlawful violence, credible threat of violence, willful course of conduct directed at a specific person that seriously alarms, annoys, or harasses the person. Kicking my dog was violence. Doing it on my property was a threat. But then I saw it. The loophole. The beautiful, golden loophole that shone like a beacon of justice in the legal text. In my state, a restraining order can protect not just the person, but their family and household members. And legally, due to recent changes in animal welfare laws, pets could be included in the scope of protection orders if they were the target of the abuse. I grinned. It wasn't a nice grin. It was the grin of a wolf who just realized the sheep gate was unlocked. If I could get a judge to grant a stay-away order for Barnaby. And if Brenda lived next door? I pulled up Google Earth. I used the measurement tool. From Brenda's front door to my front door, 35 feet. From Brenda's driveway to Barnaby's favorite pea spot, 12 feet. From Brenda's kitchen window to my porch, 22 feet. If I got a standard 100-yard stay-away order, Brenda wouldn't just be banned from my property. She would be banned from her own. I picked up the phone and dialed my friend Mike. Mike is a lawyer. He's expensive, he's vicious, and he hates HOAs almost as much as I do. "Mike," I said when he picked up, "I have a job for you. It involves a dog, a Karen, and a restraining order." "I'm listening," Mike said. "I don't just want to sue her," I said, looking out the window at Brenda's dark house. "I want to evict her, legally." "Tell me everything," Mike said. I told him. I told him about the kick, the video, the vet report, the police citation. "Jack," Mike said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. "This is beautiful. If we play this right, she won't be able to step foot in her driveway without risking arrest. When do you want to file?" "Tomorrow morning," I said. "First thing." I hung up the phone and looked down at Barnaby. He was snoring softly on his orthopedic bed, his shaved side rising and falling. "Sleep tight, buddy," I whispered. "Tomorrow we go to war." The courthouse smelled like floor wax and despair, but to me, it smelled like opportunity. I was wearing my best suit. Mike was wearing a suit that cost more than my car. We sat at the plaintiff's table. Brenda was at the respondent's table. She didn't have a lawyer. Of course she didn't. She was Brenda. She thought she could out-talk a judge. She was wearing a subdued cardigan, trying to look like a sweet grandmother, but her eyes were darting around the room like a trapped rat. "All rise," the bailiff droned. Judge Harris walked in. He was an older guy, stern face, reading glasses perched on the end of his nose. He sat down and opened the file. "Case number 49204, Jackson Miller versus Brenda Higgins," the judge read. "Petition for civil harassment restraining order." He looked over his glasses at us. "I've reviewed the temporary request. Mr. Miller, you are alleging that Miss Higgins physically attacked your dog?" "Yes, Your Honor," Mike said, standing up smoothly. "We have video evidence, a police report, and a veterinary assessment of the injuries." "It was self-defense," Brenda blurted out, jumping to her feet. "That dog is a menace. It was coming right for me." "Sit down, Miss Higgins," Judge Harris snapped. "You will speak when I address you." Brenda sat, huffing. Mike approached the bench. "Your Honor, may I present Exhibit A, the security footage?" The bailiff took the thumb drive. A moment later, the video appeared on the monitors. The courtroom was silent as everyone watched Brenda sprint across the lawn and deliver the kick. Judge Harris watched it. He winced when the kick landed. He looked at Brenda. "Miss Higgins," the judge said, his voice icy, "the dog was stationary. The dog was on the petitioner's property. You ran 20 feet to kick it." It has aggressive energy," Brenda argued. "I know dogs. That is a killer breed." "It's a Newfoundland, Miss Higgins," the judge said dryly. "They are used as therapy dogs, and in this video the only aggressive energy I see is coming from you." "He leaves it out there to taunt me," Brenda shouted. "He knows I hate it. It lowers my property value." "So you admit you kicked the dog because you dislike it, not because it was attacking you," Mike interjected perfectly. I kicked it because it shouldn't exist," Brenda yelled. The courtroom went quiet. Even Brenda seemed to realize she had said the quiet part out loud. Judge Harris took off his glasses. He rubbed the bridge of his nose. "Miss Higgins, your behavior is erratic, violent, and frankly disturbing. You trespassed on your neighbor's property and inflicted injury on a sentient creature." He looked at Mike. "Counsel, You are requesting a permanent restraining order? Yes, Your Honor, Mike said. We are requesting a 5-year order, protecting Mr. Miller and his property, specifically the dog, Barnaby. Granted, the judge said. And regarding the distance, Your Honor, Mike continued, given the close proximity of the homes and the violent nature of the unprovoked attack, we are requesting the standard 100 yards. Brenda let out a squawk. 100 yards? We live next door. Our houses are 20 feet apart. The judge looked at the file. He looked at Brenda. Then that is a problem for you, Miss Higgins, the judge said, because you have proven that you cannot control yourself when you are in proximity to this animal. If I make it 10 yards, you'll find a way to harass them. You need a cooling-off period. But I can't go home, Brenda shrieked. If you make it 100 yards, I can't go to my own house. You should have thought of that before you assaulted a $1,400 animal and trespassed, Judge Harris said. However, I am not unreasonable. I will reduce the distance to 50 yards. But that is a hard 50 yards, Miss Higgins. If you are within 50 yards of that dog, you are in violation, and 50 yards still puts me in the street, Brenda cried. Then I suggest you move, the judge said, slamming his gavel. Order granted. Next case. We walked out of the courtroom. Brenda was hyperventilating on a bench in the hallway. Mike high-fived me. 50 yards, Mike said. We did the math. 50 yards from your front porch covers her entire house, her entire backyard, and most of her driveway. So, technically, I said, if Barnaby is in my house— She can be in her house, Mike said. But if Barnaby is in your yard— She has to leave, I finished. Or be arrested, Mike grinned. I went home. I gave Barnaby a huge hug. Then I called Tony. Tony is a contractor I've used before. He's a guy who believes that building codes are guidelines, but physics is the law. He drives a truck that sounds like a tank, and he has a deep, personal vendetta against anyone who tells him what to do. Tony, I said, I need a fence. But not just a fence. I need a demarcation line. And I need stakes. Lots of stakes. What are we building, Jack? Tony asked. We are building a cage, I said. But not for me, for the neighbor. Tony arrived the next morning at 7 a.m. The sound of his diesel truck idling was like music. He jumped out holding a laser rangefinder. Okay, Tony said, looking at the court order I had handed him. 50 yards. That's 150 feet. Let's map this out. We spent an hour measuring. We put bright orange flags in the ground. The 50-yard line from the center of my front yard cut directly through Brenda's living room. It swallowed her garage. It covered her mailbox. This is hilarious, Tony said, lighting a cigarette. She literally can't pull her car in if the dog is out here. Exactly, I said. I want you to build a transparent fence along the property line. Chain link. High visibility. I want her to see him. I want her to know exactly where he is. Transparent fence coming up, Tony said. I'll get the post hole digger. This is going to be loud. Brenda came home around noon. She parked her car on the street, 3 houses down. I saw her walking up the sidewalk, looking furious. I was sitting on the porch. Barnaby was lying in the grass, enjoying the sun. Brenda stopped at the orange flag Tony had planted in the sidewalk. It was exactly 50 yards from Barnaby's nose. She glared at me. She took a step past the flag. "Brenda!" I shouted, holding up the laser rangefinder I had bought on Amazon. "Range is 49 yards! You are in violation!" She froze. She looked at the flag. She looked at Barnaby. She looked at her front door, which was another 30 yards away. "I need to get into my house," she screamed. "Then you better hope I take the dog inside," I shouted back. "But it's a lovely day. I think we'll stay out here until— Oh, I don't know, sunset?" She stomped her foot. "This is illegal. You are holding me hostage." "I am complying with a court order," I replied cheerfully. "The judge said 50 yards. I'm just helping you follow the law." She stood there for 10 minutes, fuming. Finally, she turned around, marched back to her car, and peeled away. "1 point for the good guys," Tony called out from where he was pouring concrete. "Hey, you want me to paint these fence posts neon orange? Just to make sure she sees them?" "Tony," I said, "I like the way you think. The next week was a lesson in psychological warfare. I didn't break a single rule. I didn't harass her. I simply lived my life. I created a schedule, a Barnaby patrol schedule, 7 a.m. to 8:30 a.m., morning coffee on the porch. Barnaby present. Result: Brenda cannot leave for work until 8:31 a.m. She was late 4 days in a row. 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m., evening playtime. Fetch in the front yard. Result: Brenda cannot come home. I watched her car circle the block like a shark, waiting for the all clear. The best part was the weekend. Saturday morning, I decided to do some yard work. I was out there from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Barnaby was with me the whole time, sleeping under the oak tree. Brenda's car appeared at 10 a.m. She sat down the street, idling. At 10:30, she drove away. She came back at 11:30. Still there? She honked her horn. I waved. At noon, a police car pulled up. It was Miller again. Brenda must have called him. Miller walked up the driveway, trying to hide a smirk. "Mr. Miller," he said, "we got a call about harassment?" "Harassment?" I asked, leaning on my rake. "I'm raking leaves, officer. On my property." "The neighbor claims you are intentionally keeping your dog outside to prevent her from accessing her home." I looked at Barnaby. He likes the fresh air. Is there a law against my dog sleeping on my lawn? "No," Miller said. "There isn't." He walked back to his cruiser, where Brenda had pulled up alongside him. I couldn't hear what he said, but I saw Brenda's arms flailing. I saw Miller point to the court order paperwork. I saw him shake his head. Brenda drove off, tires screeching. "She's staying at a hotel!" Tony shouted from the roof. He was fixing my gutters now, because why not? "My cousin works at the Holiday Inn. Said she checked in yesterday." This is getting expensive for her, I mused. But Brenda wasn't done. She was an HOA president. She didn't know how to lose. If she couldn't beat me legally, she would try to beat me bureaucratically. On Monday, I got a letter. Not from Brenda, but from the HOA management company. Notice of violation. Unauthorized fencing. Notice of violation. Excessive noise. Dog barking. Notice of violation. Unsightly yard ornament. Orange flags. She was trying to fine me into submission. I called Mike. "Mike, she's weaponizing the HOA." "Okay," Mike said. "Two can play that game. Did you know that according to the HOA bylaws, a board member cannot have an active criminal record or pending criminal charges related to violence?" "Really?" "Section 12, subsection D," Mike said. "Moral turpitude clause. The citation she got? That's a pending criminal charge. Class B misdemeanor." "So she can't be president?" "She can't even be on the board," Mike said. "I'll draft a letter to the management company. We're going to coup d'etat this neighborhood." I walked the letter to the mailbox myself. Barnaby came with me. As we reached the curb, which is technically city property, but within the 50-yard zone of Brenda's house, I saw the mail carrier, a guy named Steve. Steve loved Barnaby. He usually had a treat for him. "Hey, Steve," I said. "Hey, Jack. Hey, Barnaby," Steve said, tossing Barnaby a biscuit. He looked at Brenda's house. "Hey, I got a registered letter for her. Needs a signature." "She's not home," I said. "And honestly, Steve, I don't think she can come to the door." "Why not?" "Restraining order," I explained. "If she comes within 50 yards of the dog, she goes to jail. The mailbox is only 40 feet from the dog." Steve looked at the mailbox. He looked at Barnaby. He looked at his regulations manual. "Well," Steve said, scratching his chin, "USPS regulations say I can't deliver mail if there is an impediment to access. If the homeowner is legally barred from accessing the mailbox, I guess I can't deliver it." Mark it as inaccessible? I suggested. Undeliverable, Steve corrected. I'll hold it at the post office. She can pick it up in 3 days. You're a good man, Steve. Brenda missed her credit card bills. She missed her utility bills. She missed the letter from the HOA management company informing her that she was suspended from the board, pending the resolution of her criminal case. The siege was working. But the climax came 2 weeks later. It was a Tuesday evening. I was inside, cooking dinner. Barnaby was in the living room. Suddenly, I heard a pounding on my front door. I checked the camera. It was Brenda. She had snapped. She had walked right up to my door. She was screaming, incoherent, banging her fists against the wood. Come out here and fight me like a man. You ruined my life. You ruined my lawn. I know the dog is in there. I didn't open the door. I looked at Barnaby. Stay, I whispered. I picked up the phone. 911, violation of a restraining order. The subject is on my front porch. Yes, she is violent. I watched on the camera. Brenda was kicking my door now. She was throwing potted plants off my porch. She was dismantling the welcome mat. I will kill that dog, she screamed. I will poison it, I swear to God. That was the nail in the coffin. A death threat, recorded in 4K audio. The sirens were louder this time. 3 cruisers. Brenda didn't run. She stood on my porch, panting, hair wild, eyes crazy. Officer Miller was first up the steps. He didn't have his ticket book out this time. He had his handcuffs out. Brenda Higgins, Miller shouted. Turn around, hands behind your back. He's destroying me, Brenda wailed as Miller spun her around. He's the villain. You're on his porch, ma'am, Miller said, snapping the cuffs on. You're about 10 yards from the dog. That's a violation. And we heard the threats on the dispatch call. I opened the door then. I stood there with Barnaby. Brenda looked at me. She looked at the dog she had kicked. Why? She whispered, tears streaming down her face. Why are you doing this? You kicked him, I said simply. You hurt him. And you thought you could get away with it because you're the HOA president and I'm just the guy next door. You thought rules were for other people. Barnaby let out a small woof. Miller led her away. I watched them put her in the back of the car. I watched the lights fade down the street. Brenda spent the night in jail. Her bail was set high because of the violation and the threats. She didn't come back to the house. She couldn't. 3 days later, a for sale sign appeared on her lawn. Not a standard real estate sign. A sold as is quick sale sign. The rumor mill, aka Tony the contractor, told me that she was moving to a condo in Florida. A condo with a very strict no pets policy. It seemed fitting. She was moving to a place where she could be miserable with other miserable people, far away from the joy of dogs. The day the moving truck came, I sat on my porch with Barnaby. Tony came over with a 6-pack of beer. We watched the movers load her beige furniture. We watched them load her collection of porcelain dolls. We watched Brenda, looking defeated and small, get into her car. She looked at us one last time. She looked at the fence Tony had built. She looked at the orange flags. She looked at Barnaby. Barnaby didn't growl. He didn't bark. He just wagged his tail, happy to be outside with his people. She drove away. You know, Tony said, cracking open a beer, that fence is actually pretty nice. Keeps the rabbits out. I think I'll keep it, I said. It's a monument. To what? To the 50-yard line, I said, scratching Barnaby behind the ears. And the fact that you never, ever mess with a man's dog. Barnaby let out a contented sigh and rested his head on my foot. The neighborhood was quiet. The grass was green. And for the first time in 2 years, the air smelled sweet. Good boy, I whispered. Good boy.